Live service games are like this one thing in the industry that it feels like everybody wants and nobody wants at the same time. Majority of the time, they come as some form as a looter, whether it be a shooter, brawler, maybe a mixture. There's so few games out there that have genuinely cracked it, and even if they have, there's no doubt been major bumps in the road. Destiny pre-Forsaken and post-Lightfall, Final Fantasy XIV literally nuking its launch to create a brand new foundation to rebuild, Halo Infinite taking up to 3 seasons, 4 seasons to gain features that should have been there for launch but then eventually breathe new life into the game. Which is why, back in 2019, it was really shocking that a live service game launched in such a polished and finished state. Division 2. It sits at an 83 on OpenCritic, an 8.5 from IGN, 9s from Game Informer and GameSpot, and just glowing reviews all around. I loved the Division 2 at its launch, as did many. A really meaty campaign, extremely good gunplay, ironed out some issues from the first game, and gave us this gorgeous Washington DC alongside a ton of new gadgets to explore it with. The thing is, what happened after that is kinda sad really. See, after a really strong launch, sentiment felt so high, everyone was loving it, but then even I can't remember why I just dropped off and I never went back. I heard about the New York expansion, but that always feels the case with live service games is when you drop out, the feeling of wanting to go back or the possibility of going back can be pretty hard. Go and ask Diablo 4 players. During the winter sale, I saw a sale on for Division 2 and its New York City expansion. And having been to New York a few months ago and having major post New York blues, I wanted to go back. Honestly, it was the comfort food that I was searching for. I'm disappointed that this game, at least for me, never went on to be the juggernaut that its launch foundation should have allowed it to be. So, let's talk about what makes the Division 2 so good. Now, I gotta start with one quick thing. If anyone is still playing this game, what is up with the stability? I'm playing with a 4090 and an i9-13900K, and between 7 crashes on the final mission and so many more alongside that, and constant frame drops from 120 frames down to like 30 sometimes, it's a weird one. Anyway, like I say, I've been hankering to go back to New York City. Whilst I missed the snowy, more run-down version from the first game, which I think just had such a compelling and unique atmosphere, the recreation is nothing short of outstanding. I mean, the graphical fidelity is nuts for a 2019 game. What that Snowdrop engine is capable of is insane. I haven't booted up Avatar yet, but I've heard nothing but great things in the graphics department for that too. What I love though, is how they keep the Christmas theme in. Basically, this is how I imagine an Australian Christmas to be. Really festive decorations, but in beaming sunlight and warm temperatures, minus a few snakes and spiders here or there. They even have like a jingle or two playing, you got enemies in Santa hats, it's pretty funny. The ability to explore not just some of New York's biggest monuments, but just everyday buildings, arcades, cafes, it really adds to the immersion. I think the Division series is everything the day before wanted to be, with its atmosphere and fidelity. Crashes and stability aside, the way it holds up in 2023, and its audio design of how the guns sound, the explosives go off, or just waypoint markers in the Division tech itself, it's definitely the most immersive looter shooter I've ever played. Speaking of that gameplay then, I get that cover-based shooters, they're not for everyone. I love Destiny, a completely different formula for its gunplay and combat mechanics. The thing I've always thought is most tricky for when you're going for a grounded combat looter is that Destiny can whip up an assault rifle that transforms into a grenade launcher, or trace rifles that emit a pulse. They can get weirder and more scientific with its loot. The Division has a different struggle in creating interesting assault rifles or snipers that don't break immersion or the realistic sandbox that they're going for, but they still warrant the chase of exciting loot. Luckily, the gameplay is always up to par to match said problem. I know some people have the issue of entering a full SMG clip into one guy and not being able to finish them. I think it's handled way better than the Division 1, and the way weak spots are presented creates a different challenge and loop. I've always thought enemy variety was pretty well handled. Big tanky shotgunners, big tanky minigunners, snipery boys, melee boys, your flamethrower fellas, and maybe a few that I've missed. They present a challenge in taking down someone who's firing grenade launchers to flesh you out of cover whilst also being charged at by melee focused enemies. One thing I really enjoyed in the DLC was its boss fights, how these rogue agents used Division gadgets against you. So for example, one of them being a decoy. He'd project multiple versions of him around the arena, and you'd have to work out where his sniper fire was coming from. I always enjoy when a boss encounter is as much a combat challenge as it is a puzzle. So for me, it was working out, okay, where do I best position my turret to lay down some cover whilst other enemies are trying to rush me and this guy's trying to snipe me from an angle I don't know yet. One thing I've always loved about The Division is that the tougher encounters, they always feel tactical, right? Strategic positioning, what's your loadout, your skills. I miss my old kind of Tom Clancy tactical shooters, the Rainbow Six games. This comes as close as it possibly can be in being a looter shooter. The boss fights are the pinnacle of this tactical nature. I think there's 5 boss encounters in total for the New York City DLC, and I enjoyed them all. Varied monuments you'd go to fight them, but then the arenas themselves that you'd fight in were really diverse. Personally, no matter the game, I'm always an assault rifle boy, even if it seemed like marksman was the way to go for maximum damage in this one. But all the guns felt good. SMGs felt fast and nifty, shotguns felt weighty, ARs felt good at all kind of distances. I really enjoyed too that one assault rifle would feel so different from the next, whether that be fire rate, accuracy, impact, or just the audio feedback that it's providing. I think by the end of the Warlords of New York DLC, it really opens up to play exactly how you want to play. What build do you want to create? What's your method of traversing around this city? In terms of what kind of Division agent do you want to be? I went for the turret and the drone that spots and attacks weak spots on enemies. Speaking of the DLC, I was pretty engaged by the story. Usually in a loot, I'm like, oh, okay, cool loot, and kind of pay attention to the story, but I'm never like, sucked into it. And I think that's why I really felt so strong in liking the Division 2 at launch, because narratively, it's pretty interesting. I'm a sucker for like agents things, especially like near future kind of post-apocalyptic, which this world kind of is. It really sells me on the kind of human story because, well, it's exactly what us kind of idiots in this world would create. Seeing why they became rogue agents, how they were recruited by Keener, finding the audio logs around the city. Even as someone who doesn't remember much of the main story, I was like, okay, yeah, this is what's going on. These are these people, Black Tusk. Okay, gotcha. I've always found the factions fairly believable, fairly diverse. At the end of the day, they're all fodder, but I'm sure for the Division lore people out there, there's probably a lot to unpack. By the end of my 8-ish hours, maybe closer to 10, I was like, so happy to be back in this world. But then, I finish up the DLC and its side missions, and now I'm like, okay, speak to this person. Do what? Okay, how do seasons work? Where do I need to go? And then I was overwhelmed. It just feels such a shame. One, because this is exactly how bad, if not worse, I imagine it is for me trying to get new people to play Destiny 2, okay? Second, I really wanted to get back into this game before Suicide Squad and during some Destiny seasonal downtime, but I felt stuck. And I think it comes back to why I dropped off. The quality of the main packages in this game is so high, so refined, but then what comes after, in my opinion, comes with the real challenge of developing a sustainable live service model. So, I could go and do these manhunts, but what am I actually getting better gear for? Because they're working on a Star Wars game releasing this year, they've just released Avatar, and now Division 3 is in the pipeline. How much further has the Division 2's legs got to go? Destiny, there's always another expansion or thing to look forward to with a big story moment, a 6-man raid. Final Fantasy XIV pumping out a new expansion this year. It's a me problem, because time spent playing one game comes at the cost of not playing another. And whilst I absolutely love playing the Division 2 and being back in this beautiful, depressing world, I don't know if there's a strong enough reason to keep going through it. I know they're working on some kind of fresh content right now. Who knows? Maybe I'll stick around if I can resolve this weird performance and crashing issue. But I will say this. I can't help but feel so excited about the possibility of a Division 3. 2 showed all the learnings of 1 and launched in probably the best state a live service shooter ever has. But it lacks a compelling loop and content cadence for me personally to keep plowing through. So if 2 took 1's lessons, I can't wait to see 3 take 2's, and not just hopefully nail the foundation and launch all over again, but create a live service model that propels this particular franchise to the heights that I think it really deserves. So, what's your thoughts on the Division 2? Are you still playing? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, dropping a like would really help me out. If you enjoy looter shooters or just hearing me babble on about video games that I really like, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button. Have a terrific day, and I'll catch you in the next one, agents.